before the weekend even began, Matt Zollers, the number 5 quarterback in the On3 industry rankings, was off the board. Bit of a shocker. He goes to Mizzou. So we're going to talk a little bit about Missouri later on the show. But right now, we're going to talk some QB dominoes. And what does Matt Zollers, because it was Penn State, Georgia, Mizzou, those were kind of the main players for Zollers. He comes off the board to Mizzou. So what does this mean for Georgia?
Well, Georgia offensive coordinator Mike Bobo has been recruiting 3 quarterbacks very hard in this 2025 cycle. Matt Zollers was obviously one of them, but you have 5-star Julian Lewis out of Carrollton High School there in the Peach State, and then you have Ryan Montgomery from Findlay, Ohio, Findlay High. Those are 2 guys that Georgia's on the short list for both of them. Julian Lewis, currently committed to USC, has been to Georgia several times, including this spring, and he'll be back for his official visit the first weekend in June. Now, he might make some more visits this spring. The Colorado spring game has been mentioned. That would be his 3rd visit to Boulder this calendar year. Auburn's in the mix for Julian Lewis. He's really starting to vibe with the new coaching staff at Alabama. But Georgia's always been in the middle of that one for Julian Lewis, and it oftentimes has been considered the biggest threat to flip him. So we'll continue to monitor that. He just had a fantastic visit to USC. So Lincoln Riley and the Trojans trying to hang on after having him on campus for 3 days last weekend. And then Ryan Montgomery visited Georgia earlier this spring. He's also been to campus numerous times. His last visit, he had a chance to sit down and watch film with Mike Bobo and Montgomery Van Gorder for hours and really enjoyed that film session. So Georgia's poured a lot into Ryan Montgomery. Montgomery visited Florida this weekend. He's going to be at South Carolina's spring game, a decision expected soon after that. But does Georgia turn it up now even more for Ryan Montgomery after losing Matt Zollers? We'll see.
Yeah. So the Zollers commitment to Mizzou, I mean, if he goes to Georgia, I think that kind of establishes USC as the front runner for Julian Lewis. And I know he's committed there, but I've said publicly on this show, if I had a power ranking list, I had UGA over USC. Well, I did the power rankings a couple weeks ago. But now with these recent developments, what's your take on Julian Lewis in UGA? I mean, I just don't feel like it's as much of a shoe-in as I felt it was maybe 3-4 weeks ago for the Dogs to go flip him.
Well, back when he reclassified to the 2025 class, he almost also reopened his recruitment at the same time. But I think that with USC, even in that moment, him and his family already started to get a little bit of FOMO. When you start thinking about USC and Lincoln Riley and the track record at the position of not only having a first-round pick regularly, but the number 1 pick, the Heisman Trophy winner, if you start for Lincoln Riley at the position, it's almost a guarantee that those 2 things are going to happen for you. So if it's not me, Julian Juju Lewis, under center for USC, it's going to be somebody else attaining those things that I've worked so hard for. He was just back out at USC. He got a chance to go shopping, go to the beach, really feel what it would be like to live in LA. Certainly got back around Lincoln Riley. And he said there's no coach in college football that loves the game as much as him. And he pointed to Lincoln Riley being the head coach, being the offensive coordinator, and being the quarterback's coach. He saluted him for that and said this is how much he pours into those jobs on his staff. How could anyone love coaching as much as Lincoln Riley? So he really respects that, had a great time out there, likes the way that USC's recruiting, likes the way USC's hitting the portal. They really think that USC can win the national championship by the time he gets out there. So I think USC has really done a good job of hanging on in this recruitment and talking to some people that spent time with Julian Lewis at USC. This is the best that they've felt about that recruitment in quite some time. But you and I and everybody know that until the ink dries, anything can happen. And Colorado mentioned for us the spring game. Again, that would be his 3rd time on campus this calendar year. He's really enjoyed talking football with Coach Shermer. When they were out there a couple weeks ago, they thought the offense looked great at the spring practice that they attended, and certainly the platform that you can get playing for Deion Sanders in Colorado is also exciting. And then, of course, Georgia, of course, Auburn, of course, Alabama. Those 3 schools are in the mix as well. So Julian Lewis setting up official visits, and those will be important in his process.
All right, so Julian Lewis is the number 2 rated quarterback. Obviously, Bryce Underwood, number 1. Number 3 is George McIntyre. Number 4 is Deuce Knight. Number 5 is Matt Zollers. And then we get to number 6. He's the highest rated uncommitted QB in the country, and that's Hen Longstreet out of California. And this weekend, he was on the move. Auburn, Oregon, Ole Miss visits. He's going to make a decision pretty soon. I know Texas A&M is in the mix as well, but how do you see this Hen Longstreet recruitment shaping up?
Hey, a little bonus nugget before we get into Longstreet. Alabama's still trying to recruit Deuce Knight, Notre Dame commit, alongside Julian Lewis. So they're trying to get the spatula out on a couple quarterbacks, Kalen DeBoer and that new staff. But Hen Longstreet, we're talking Iron Bowl caliber quarterbacks. He was at Auburn this weekend. What a busy 9 days or so for the Corona Centennial standout. Was at Texas A&M last weekend. I think A&M was the leader going into that visit and coming out of that visit, but went to Ole Miss, then went to Oregon, then went to Auburn for A-Day, Auburn's spring game. And Auburn has given this young man a lot to think about. It was his second time on campus this year. The first time he was there, he got a chance to see a spring practice. Loved the way Hugh Freeze and his staff ran practice, and now they got a chance to get back. As many times as I said, I'm excited to be here at the top of this clip, they said the word amazing to describe this Auburn visit. Everything was amazing, from time spent with Hugh Freeze and company to the fans to just the atmosphere on campus to getting around the players. And kind of similar to what they said about Texas A&M and a quarterback stepping in, they think that this Auburn roster is perfectly setting up with the way they've recruited receiver and some of these other positions for him to step in and be the trigger man and be the guy to get it going. So Texas A&M, the leader coming into this Auburn visit, his father, Kevin, told me that he's going to take tonight and tomorrow to try and figure this thing out. He's got a decision date next Sunday. Right. You and I have heard a lot of times where, hey, we're going to take these next 2 days, decide, and sit on it. Well, it's going to be hard because these coaches are going to keep
doesn't stop.
Trying to converse, keep recruiting you till you tell them one way or the other. And these guys didn't get these corner office jobs by accident. They're very
they didn't get them by being lazy.
Right. They're eloquent in their message. So, look, A&M, they had Keelan Russell on campus this weekend, SMU commit. So, if it goes sideways with Hen Longstreet, Keelan Russell, the in-state state champion quarterback from Duncanville, they obviously have him on the radar. But Auburn, they seem to have a lot of late momentum here. Is it enough to overtake A&M? We'll know next Sunday, Josh.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the recruiting prediction machine right now for Longstreet, and it shows, and I want to see if you agree with this, Texas A&M at 97.3% and Auburn at 1.4%. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's a little closer?
Well, I think we can all agree that it's closer. I had an A&M pick at my old place of employment. Not logged a new pick at On3, so excited to hopefully do that this coming week. But A&M, Auburn, neither would surprise me. Really liked A&M early last week, late the week before this past week. In Auburn, just seeing that spring practice on his last visit, then coming back on this visit. And he's an Under Armour athlete too. He was in that commercial with the Super Bowl a few years ago with Tom Brady, the Under Armour Next athletes, and just having even that a little wrinkle with Auburn is something that's helping the Tigers. But A&M all in on Hen Longstreet as well.
All right, before we get out of QB dominoes, I want to circle back to Ryan Montgomery because he was in Gainesville this weekend. He's the number 15 quarterback in the country, number 197 overall. And for much of the last 6 to 8 months, I would say it's UF in South Carolina. UF or South Carolina. Ryan Montgomery just visiting those two schools. He's mixing a couple more. UGA is one of them. So now that UGA has missed on Matt Zollers, should the Gators and the Gamecocks be a little leery of the Dogs getting heavily involved for Ryan Montgomery?
Well, certainly Georgia could, like we talked about at the top, ratchet this thing up for Ryan Montgomery. And sometimes it's not when you get the ticket for the ride, if that ride is right for you, and if they view Georgia as the best situation for him to develop in the quarterback he wants to develop into, he could certainly be a Bulldog. And I think that's the way Ryan Montgomery and company are looking at it. Mm-hmm. And even though we may have said, hey, this is Georgia's top target, this is Georgia's number 2 target, and this is Georgia's number 3 target. Mike Bobo has recruited the hell out of this kid. He's been in regular contact with him. He's built a great relationship with Montgomery Van Gorder as well, and he's been to Athens several times and really likes it. Now, with all that being said, I think South Carolina has led the majority of this recruitment.
Yeah.
But Florida has always been an interesting option for him, and I think part of the reason why Florida wasn't for most of the case on the same level as South Carolina is there's been a little bit of nervousness about the trajectory of the Florida program with the schedule that they have this year, and some of the tough games that they had last year. But from just a pure coaching staff perspective, this young man loves Billy Napier, and he loves Coach O'Hara, always loves being around there, just loves the vibe and culture around the Florida program that Coach Napier and his staff have put in place. And he just had a great visit where he spent a lot of time with Graham Mertz, really enjoyed that, got into the intricate details. He visited with the team pastor, just got more time with players on the team, and Florida gave him a lot to think about. He's going to visit South Carolina for the Gamecock spring game, and then he's going to try and make a decision, which will make things very interesting again. If, let's say, Julian Lewis isn't ready to decide, we talked about it. We think Julian Lewis is going to take his official visits before committing, but I think they have conversations. Do we need to take those? He's been on so many trips. What if Ryan Montgomery's timeline is earlier than Julian Lewis's, and he says, look, I want to come to Georgia? Does Georgia say, all right, we'll take 2, or no, you can't, or yes, you're coming and we're done with 1? So it's all fascinating stuff right now.
Yeah, and guys, let me know. Comment section below. These QB dominoes are dropping. Where do you think some of these uncommitted prospects are going to land? Let me know. Comment section below. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed that, go check out the hundreds of videos that we have on this channel, and also do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel.